I think the biggest surprise of the season so far for Texas A&M has been the lack of usage of some of these receivers we figured would have a massive role.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. And on today's episode of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about what ESPN's FPI thinks about the Aggies. How do we feel about our chances of making the playoff? Is there any confidence in beating Texas and winning out? We'll have that conversation. But we're going to start the day with a little bye-week conversation of the biggest surprises of the season to this point. You've played 9 games in the Mike Elko era. And, we're starting to get a bit of a feel for what the future is going to kind of hold for Texas A&M. And it's exciting. It's an exciting time in this program knowing, hey, we are, a handful of games in, and the future's bright. I think what you've done to this point has been you got to be happy. The question is, though, every season you have some surprises. You have some things you anticipate going this way, and they go this way, anticipate going this way, and they go this way. And that's been the case so far this season. I mean, I've got 8 things here that I would argue have been a bit surprising so far this season for Texas A&M. The first of those things is the lack of usage, production, whatever word you want to use, of some of the receivers that we anticipated having a significant role. The 2 names that stand out there are Jahdae Walker and, of course, Moose Muhammad, the veteran guy. On the year, Walker has 14 catches for 160 yards and a touchdown. I mean, here's the deal. In general, before we dive super deep into this conversation, I think in general, the receivers, they just haven't used them a ton because this team wants to run the football, and I get that. But I still thought that you were going to see more than 14 catches, 9 games into the season. I mean, you could say, well, Noah Thomas only has 24 catches. That's fair. That's a valid response. And I agree with you on that. Now, first of all, though, I saw Noah Thomas as more of a, he's a 4 catches a game type of guy for 80 yards and a touchdown because that's kind of the player he is. I saw Jahdae Walker as the guy that would have 5, 6 catches a game. And then, Moose Muhammad's even 5 catches for 49 yards and a touchdown on the year. I would have never guessed these numbers. If you would have told me that 9 games into the season, Jahdae Walker and Moose Muhammad have combined for 19 catches, I would have laughed at you. Now, to be fair, Jabri Barber missing, we expected him to miss a good portion of the season, if not all of it. And so, I think that him being out there has made a bit of a change to this. I mean, if you would have told me that, I would have said, okay, well, maybe they don't have, 40 combined catches. Maybe it's more like 35 or 32 or something. But if you'd have told me 19, I would have said, no, there's no way it's 19. And I think with Moose, Jahdae Walker's the guy. He's been out there. You look at the PFF on the season. He has played 264 snaps. So, he's been out there. But then you look at Moose Muhammad, he's only played 100 snaps. And I think part of that is he does some silly things on the field, and he's liable to get penalties. And we saw him shove a ref once and luckily get away with it. I think he's a bit of a liability at times to put on the field. But I think that's one thing maybe, and I don't know Moose. I don't want to put anything negative out there, but I think maybe that's the reason why we didn't see him as much last year with Jimbo Fisher. And we went, well, why don't we ever see Moose? Maybe there's a reason there more than, that. So, I think he's a great player. I think he just is, one of those really he's a competitive player, and then sometimes he'll talk a little trash, do a little shoving and all that, and sometimes it'll hurt you if you get a penalty. So, and I also think Elko is just no nonsense on that. But that is so. But still, the point stands. If you would have told me that these two have combined for 19 catches, I would have laughed at you. I mean, truly, I would have thought that was a joke of some kind. So I think that's been the biggest surprise, has been the lack of production of these two guys. In all honesty, I'm more surprised about the lack of production for Jahdae Walker. I really thought he was going to have a massive season. Now, it's just part of it. Obviously, you've had Jabri Barber step up of late. Cyrus Sounds had a few good games. Noah Thomas had a few good games. It's kind of been a swinging door, and nobody has really made themselves the guy in the room. We thought it was Noah Thomas. Now maybe it's Jabri Barber. There's still a lot of toss up there, but I definitely am surprised by how that has gone to this point for this wide receiver room. The next surprise for me has been the usage of DJ Hicks. So if you look at the PFF grades on defense and you take a gander at DJ Hicks's numbers, he is, which I'm not really worried about PFF grade right now. I'm more worried about snap count. But on here, DJ Hicks has a PFF grade. He has the 29th best PFF grade for Texas A&M players on defense at 64.9 overall. And he's played a total of 189 snaps. And, I just kind of, like, you look at some other names here. Cassius Howells played 305. Will Lee, my goodness, he's played 538 snaps. Albert Regis has played 326 snaps. I'm trying to find defensive linemen. Shamar Turner's played 414. So the point here is this. I think what comes as a bit of a surprise to me is that those 189 snaps, that's not like he's not playing. He's played in all 9 games. So let's do the math on that. 189 snaps divided by 9 games. He's playing 21 snaps a game. So he's playing a substantial amount per game. And I get that there's a rotation. I get all that. My point is, I would have expected this number to be higher. I would. So I'm going to get, someone's going to comment and say, well, he's playing 21 snaps a game. What are you talking about? He's playing. I agree. He's playing. It's not like he's not playing. I'm just saying, I thought he would be having a more significant impact, more snaps to this point than he has this year. I still believe in the 5-star to really turn heads and build that bright future and be a great player. Sometimes it might just takes a little bit of time, and I believe in him and what he's gonna be able to do. But that's what I'm saying. So I know you're saying, it sounds like, man, he's playing 21 snaps a game. We're talking about it feels like that number would have been a little higher if I would have guessed that number to be higher had you asked me at the beginning of the season. So that is why the DJ Hicks number is there. Like I said, I was just a little bit surprised by that. And I'll tell you another one I have here is the play of Amari Daniels. And now I want to add the caveat here of the additions of knowing that you've had now 2 running backs go down. You obviously had Reuben Owens go down before the season, and then now Le'Veon Moss after last week's game against South Carolina. He's done for the year. The loss of Reuben Owens before the season made it clear that you're going to see an even more significant role for Amari Daniels. Now, he's your RB1 for the rest of the year. The other thing that came as a surprise to me is, get this, folks. Get this. On the season, your number 1 player in PFF grade for Texas A&M, number 1 player PFF grade, Amari Daniels. His grade in 244 snaps is an 80.4. He's got a pass grade of 60.5, pass block grade of 44, a rush grade of 82.5, and a run block grade of 63. I wonder how many run block snaps he's got. But you get the point. He's been good. He's been good. I have talked about at times there were a few the yards per carry wasn't quite where I would love in a few games, but then he's had some games where he's been incredible. And you're going to need him to be great. And the thing about it is people forget, I mean, he was one of your dudes last year. He was really Amari Daniels, heading into the season. I thought he would have a role. If Reuben Owens and Le'Veon Moss were both on the field, I thought Daniels would have a role, but I thought it would be small. I didn't think he was going to have a massive role. So I've been impressed with the numbers he's put up to this point in the season. And like I said, you've got to remember, he's now your guy. He's your guy for the rest of the season, in a season where you're right now still in the hunt to make the college football playoff. So I definitely was a bit surprised with how great his PFF grade and just how helpful and useful he's been to this team to this point. Obviously, one of the things we're going to have to talk about when it comes to this is the play of quarterback. We're going to talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and can be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific details, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. There's no question that quarterback play was going to come up in this conversation. Those of you everydayers here at Locked On Aggies know that I was a huge Connor Wigman guy this offseason. And, I think what got me so fired up about Connor Wigman was his play early last year. And, I believed he was going to have a good year. I believed that Coach Elko brought in some solid weapons for him. I thought he had a great year coming up, and I loved what Coach Klein was able to do with him. I think, to me, my thoughts on Connor Wigman currently are as follows. I think that I believe he still has upside. I do. And I'll tell you this. I'm really anxious to find out what the future holds for Connor Wigman, because I'm just telling you, I don't know, what this is going to look like for him. What is he going to do here? Because here's the deal. Marcel Reed's younger than him. I mean, you got to remember, if Marcel Reed proves he is 100% without a doubt the guy, if you're Connor Wigman, I think there's only one decision you can make. And so it's a bit surprising to me. I just think we saw a couple games of Wigman his true freshman year, a handful of games last year. We came into this year with him having, 7-8 games under his belt, which is a good amount. But also, I mean, it's not enough to it's still a small sample size. And then he, of course, has had a great game against Missouri this year. And then, we saw poor play against Notre Dame. We saw poor play against LSU. We saw, not great play against Mississippi State. He's just not been great. And I mean, I understand the decision of Coach Elko and Coach Klein when it comes to making the move to Marcel Reed, because it's not easy. It's a lot easier to have confidence in him with his legs. And I mean, obviously I'll take Wigman's arm, but Reed's arm has been okay. I mean, there's definitely some improvement that needs to happen there, but it's been okay to where this is going to be a struggle for Connor Wigman, I think, to fight back in the lineup. I mean, Reed's been great. So I don't know what the future holds. And once again, I was confident in the season Wigman was going to have. I just flat out missed on that one, which I hate, because, we were all rooting for Connor Wigman. But I would have been, if you'd have told me back 4 months ago that Marcel Reed would be the starter for this team by week 10, I'd have been like, really? I would have been really surprised. I was really a believer in Connor Wigman. So I think another thing that's been a surprise for me has been the lack of snaps for Terry Bussey out playing corner. The original plan for Bussey was for him to be a corner. And I figured that they were going to use him as a gadget guy on offense, a punt returner. Like we knew all that, a returner, a kick returner. We knew all that. We knew they were going to use him in those ways. I was just a little surprised at the lack of the way he's played, or the lack of snaps he's got at corner, because I'm pretty sure I looked at the PFF grade, it's 1. Now, and actually, I think that snap came because he was like tackling somebody on that got an interception or something. So I don't. He might not even have a single defensive snap. And now you've got some solid veteran DBs, corners, and safeties. Obviously, we know what you've had in Will Lee. We've seen some great play from Des Ricks at times. You've had some great play at corner. What does the future hold for Terry Bussey? I believe that he's going to work his way back in. I believe that the future holds him being a really good corner for this team. I mean, I think he's the closest thing to Travis Hunter you have in college football right now that's not Travis Hunter. And I think he's got similar upside to that. I mean, you got to remember, Travis Hunter was number 1 player. Terry Bussey's a 5-star. He's top 20 player. So the upside's there. The upside's there for Bussey when it comes to him being an elite player with that type of skill set. The previous regime loved him as a corner. The current regime loves him as a corner. I just think it's easier to fit him in a receiver right now than it is at corner. I believe that he's going to find his way in the lineup as a corner at some point next season, probably the rest of his career. So I've just talked about, he's such a great player and he's such a great athlete that you have to have him on the field. And it seems to me like the way they were able to get him on the field this season has just been that receiver rather than corner. I think next season you're going to see that change, but you can't not be fired up about the play of Terry Bussey at receiver to this point in his young career. The last one I have here is the play of the offensive line. All offseason I talked about, my number 1 concern for this team was the offensive line. Number 1, without a doubt, biggest concern was offensive line. And the way they've played, especially losing to Mark Naboo, you've had an injury. The way that they've played to this point in the season, I've been incredibly impressed. They're not elite. They're not the best offensive line in the SEC. But once again, my shebang all offseason has been, listen, if this offensive line can just be good, if they can just be good, if they can just be okay to great in that range, okay to great, probably not elite, probably okay to great. If they can just be that, this is going to be a really, really special season for Texas A&M. And I think what you've seen so far. They've been good. And I was concerned because what my concern was, you're going to have a great football team, great quarterbacks, great running backs, great receivers, great defensive line. We had more belief in the secondary, great linebackers, but then your offensive line was going to be so bad that your offense was going to struggle and you weren't going to be able to get anything going, and you were going to kind of waste a great season because of because of offensive line play. And I think that the play of this offensive line has made that a non-factor. And that really does get me fired up because, as I said, heading into this season, that was my number 1 concern for this team, was the play of the offensive line. Will this offensive line be able to hold up? Will they be able to have a good season? Because if they don't, it's going to be really, really hard for the Aggies to be successful this year. And they have outplayed my expectations by a wide margin early in the season. And I believe they'll continue to do that throughout the rest of the season. We're going to talk about what the FPI has to say about the Aggies' chances of making the playoff and beating the Texas Longhorns. We'll have that conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, let's talk about our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's number 1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in the one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same place where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Also, want to tell you about our friends over at Hims. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to the doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's HIMS.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. The products mentioned are chewable, compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with the healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. So, the ESPN FPI metrics, I always find them interesting. I don't look at them religiously. I don't think that they matter a ton, but I do find them very interesting. So, they give Texas A&M a 5.1% chance to win out, which means, win your last 3 games, beat New Mexico State, beat Auburn, and beat Texas. They give you a 7.4% chance to win the SEC. So, it's interesting that that percentage is bigger. That 2% must be because other teams can lose, whatever. And then you have an 18.1% chance to make the college football playoff. That number would be a lot higher had you beaten South Carolina. But what that tells me, the 5.1% chance to win out, what that tells me is there's not a lot of confidence. And I believe all of that 95% comes from this Texas game. Now, they're probably giving a little bit there for Auburn, but it really feels like this team or these FPI rankings are looking at this going, man, is Texas A&M going to be able to beat Texas and not having a ton of confidence? So, I kind of look at it like a parlay on FanDuel. They probably maybe take 10% away from Auburn because they don't have a ton of belief in them. And then you add that to Texas, and then it's why their win out's 5.1%. I think that number should be substantially higher because obviously New Mexico State's not too much for concern. I think Auburn is a bad football team. I think you for sure win those 2 games. And then, so what I'm saying is, like, if you pull up the percent, like, let's play this game. Let's go to ESPN and let's see what the percent chance they have for Texas A&M to beat Auburn and to beat Texas is. Because I bet it's a lot higher than many believe. So, okay, let's go. This currently has the Auburn percentage to beat Auburn for Texas A&M at 61.5%. I'm actually a little surprised by that. I would have guessed that to be closer to 75 if I had to guess. And this is, the analytics matchup predictor from ESPN, just a little bit on the ESPN app. Then you look at the Texas game, and the Aggies have a 24.8% chance to win. I think that's a little low. So that makes a lot of sense now why they're at 5.1%. I think that should be closer to 40-60 for the Texas game. There's no way they have that much confidence knowing that the Longhorns have to come to College Station. I just don't believe that for half a second. As I've said, I wouldn't be one bit surprised at all if Texas wins that football game. But to say that you're that confident in that is where I have some issues with it. So, but that's where the FPI numbers sit. I'm a little surprised by that. Like I said, I really would have expected that to be a little bit higher. for both of those. Like, I would have expected your win out percentage to be like 18%, 21%, not 5%. That feels laughably low to me. I think it's disrespectful to this team. I think it should be a little bit higher. So I'm a little frustrated by that number. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Really appreciate y'all being here every single day. The plan for tomorrow is to do a mailbag, a couple segments and answer a lot of questions. So if y'all have any questions, send them to me on Twitter at Andrew Stefaniak. Comment them on YouTube. Leave them really wherever, and we'll answer some questions on the show tomorrow, knowing that it's bye week. And then you got New Mexico State coming up. So we'll kind of have some conversations like that over the next few days. If you haven't already, subscribe on YouTube. That helps the show a ton. And then if you're listening on a podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever it is, leave a 5-star review. That helps the show a ton. And, like and subscribe on there as well. Really appreciate y'all being here. Like I said, hope everyone has a great rest of their Thursday. Enjoy the Thursday night football game tonight. And we will see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.